Hi everyone, welcome to another fun art project with Miss Oropeza. In today's painting, we're going to be creating a picture of Half Dome located in Yosemite National Park. Half Dome is one of Yosemite's most famous heights, and many artists like to go there just to capture its profound beauty. Now, before we get started, let's see what a dome is. A dome is a hemispherical structure, like in architecture, for instance. It shows a rounded vault, forming the roof of a building, typically with a circular shape. And it is very common among structures like cathedrals, churches, Gothic architecture, mosques, and other types of buildings. These are some good examples. See that round vault at the top there? That's a dome. Now here's a great view of Half Dome with a breathtaking sky. Can you imagine what it's like to climb up there? I bet it's quite an experience. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and move on to our project now. Okay, so to get started with our painting, guys, we're gonna need a towel just to be wiping our brush as we're going along. I like to use a fabric towel for that. I also have my cup with some water and my paintbrush. I have some mixing plates for our mixtures that we're going to be doing, and of course our paints. We're using acrylic paint for this project. And I also like to have some napkins or towels that are going to help us create some texture, especially for our background. And of course our canvas. So once you guys have gathered all those materials, let's go ahead and get started with our project. Here we go. So in our mixing tray, we're going to start off by adding some blue and dissolving the blue to kind of water it down as much as possible for our sky. So I'm just going to get some dips in there and transfer them over to my tray, kind of like if it was a spoon. So when I dipped it, you noticed I just kind of dipped it like a spoon and transferred it over to my tray. And we're going to dissolve it as much as possible so that we can have a nice fluid paint to work on the background area for the sky. So make sure you guys add plenty of that water. Okay, there we go. Okay, and I think that's pretty watery. Okay, look at that. I can actually, if I were to tilt my plate a little, I can actually see the paint kind of moving on from one point to another because it's nice and watery now. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush real good and also add some of the red. I'm going to do kind of like a sunset on the background. So let's go ahead and add some red next. And I just kind of do 3 good dips in there. And also add some water into my red. So let's go ahead and dissolve by adding water, making it nice and fluid for our sky. Okay, so if I move my tray, let's see. Let's see, it's kind of going in that direction. So that's good. I think I'm at a good point. Once you kind of move your tray around and the paint starts to kind of go in that direction, I think we're good. Shouldn't be stiff. Okay, nice and watery. Yeah, just one more. All right, and then I'm also going to add some yellow. So make sure you guys clean your brush really well. Now look at my water, it turned purple. Well, that's because red and blue makes purple. So part of our sky is going to be kind of purplish. And now we're just going to get some of that yellow. Get maybe about 3 good dips. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Just so we can have enough paint for our background. And of course, we're also going to dissolve it with the water here. So mix it in really well until it's nice and fluid and watery. Okay, so let's go ahead and mix, 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 mix. Kind of spin my brush around as I'm mixing it, just so that all that excess amount of water on my brush can stay in that tray. All right, I think I'm good. Let's see if I kind of move it a little bit. Oh, yep, there we go. Now I can see it moving around. So now my paint is nice and watery for my sky area. I want it to be nice and watery, okay? Because we're gonna start off with the background sky. So for the sky, let's go ahead and see. So now make sure you wipe your brush really well for that next color that you're gonna use. Okay, so every time we kind of move on to a different color, just make sure you're cleaning your brush as you go along. And we're starting with the blue, then moving on to the red, and then finally the yellow, okay? So let's start with the blue. And towards the top here, we're gonna continue our strokes from side to side, and they're gonna be nice and long. So make sure you get plenty of that paint on your paintbrush and do long strokes from side to side. Remember, your paint needs to be nice and watery for it to spread evenly throughout your canvas. So if you see some little pores still showing on your canvas, try to cover them up real good with your canvas, with your paint. So you can cover up that canvas area nicely, okay? Now, when I'm about a fourth way down, okay, keep them sideways, keep your stroke sideways. I'm about 1/4 down from top to bottom. So now I'm going to introduce my second color, which is going to be the red. So now I'm going to add my red right where I left off with my blue. But look at that striking line in the between. We want to get rid of that. So how can we get rid of this line right in the middle? So it can actually flow very nicely. It can blend in. Well, what we can do is get some water, and just in between here, we're going to blend the blue and the red together. And your red and your blue are going to create this purple sky right in between. Okay, and I don't have that striking line separating the two colors anymore because now they're nicely blended in. Okay, so I just keep going with the red and I go further down. Keep those sideways strokes going all the way as you're completing your canvas. All right, now I'm about halfway done. So once you guys are about halfway, we're going to move on to our last color here, and it's going to be yellow. So again, start your yellow just where you left off with your red. Okay. Keep those sideways strokes. Now, if you notice, I can see a nice sharp line in between. I want to get rid of that sharp line. Okay, so I want to blend these two in. So I can get a little bit of water and just kind of blend them in right in between. So my orange starts to show between my yellow and my red. Start seeing some streaks of orange. Because yellow and red will make orange. Okay, so beautiful sky colors right there. Look at that. It looks like a beautiful sunset already. So you just kind of keep going like that with your yellow now. I'm just going to keep going all the way down. Just going to keep using the yellow. Okay, all the way down to the bottom. Oh, beautiful sunset. Look at that. Nice. I like that. All right. Here we go. Beautiful. Look at that, you guys. All right, so I'm going to set these paints aside. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a towel and just going to get a little piece. Kind of crunch it up into a little ball. Just kind of squeeze it. And with this, we're going to try to get some of that excess amount of paint off, but at the same time, creating some beautiful textures for the clouds and the sky area. So I'm tapping, okay? And if I move down to a different color, try to keep an area of your towel where it's clean, okay? So now moving on to the red. So I'm gonna get a different part of my towel. Now I'm moving down to the yellow. So I'm gonna try to get a clean part. And just tap, 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 okay? You're tapping your way all the way to the bottom. Just randomly tapping all the way, okay? So look at that, guys. You see those nice effects? Looks like kind of like a clouds kind of streaming by, a beautiful sunset. Just gonna tap a little bit more. And there we go. Now we have a beautiful background to work with for our dome. Okay, so for our next step, guys, I'm going to be using a different tray here for my mixing for the next set of colors. And that's going to be black and white. Okay, so I want to start my rock structure right along this area here in the middle. And it's going to be like a kind of like a top of the mountain. So my mountain's going to be around this area, and then my rock structure dome area is going to be towards the middle here. Okay. So let's go ahead and mix some of that black and white. I'm going to put some black and some white. Kind of scoop it up. All right, there we go. I have plenty of white, plenty of black to work with. Okay. Now, I want to mix some of that black into the white, okay? Just so that I can actually see how much it needs as I go along. It's better to start with a little bit and go on from there, okay? Because the black is very strong compared to the white. It is going to pretty much make it dark right away, okay? So it's better to start adding the black little by little into the white. There you go. Now, if you want it darker, you can just add a little bit more black, depending on how dark you want your gray for the front part of the rock, because we're going to start with the front part of the rock. Okay. There we go. So I think I'm happy with that tone. Can even have it just a slightly darker if I want to. Now just a little bit more black. And there we go. That's a pretty good tone of gray. So let's go ahead and shape up our front of the dome rock towards the top here. So maybe about towards the middle, more or less. But I'm just gonna kind of focus on the middle and then move my brush slightly to the left. And this is where the top of my rock is going to be. Okay. So from here, I'm going to shape it down. And then it's going to curve to the side and then come down all the way to the bottom. Okay. On the other side, it's going to come down. This time, it's going to go around And you're going all the way down to the bottom. Okay. Wow, look at that. Now remember, we kind of moved slightly towards the left here because all this part here is going to be the top of the rock. So make sure you guys have enough space here to do the top dome part of the structure. Okay, so we can go ahead and start filling this area in for our rock formation. Right here. Okay. Now we'll focus on detail in the end to get that kind of texture on the rock. So now I want to make this gray slightly lighter. So I'm going to add more white to it. Okay, for my next step. Make sure you guys kind of dip it in there. I'm going to just kind of put some on the side here. And keep it there as we go along. You can just start adding it into the gray. Okay. So once you have plenty of white, let's go ahead and now dip it in to the gray area just to tint it a bit. Okay, so if it's not light enough, you can add some more. Because we want to create a nice contrast between the two colors there. All right. Okay. Now here at the top, right at the point part, we're going to bring this down, and now we're going to curve it down all the way to the bottom, okay? So curve it all the way to the bottom here. And we're going to fill this part in. So this is part of the top of the dome right here. This would be the cliff part coming down. And this is the top part of the dome. So let's go ahead and fill it in with that lighter gray. Make sure you come all the way to the edge here, where that dark gray meets. Okay, so there we go. Now I have the top part of my dome. Look at that, you guys, coming out nicely. Now with my paintbrush, and I'm just gonna kind of swipe some of that paint off. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of make a little bit of textures that are going to go straight up and down, just to create some straight up and down rock effects or texture. So just kind of like with the tip of your brush, and just bring it down, straight down, top to bottom. You can do it randomly in different areas. Let's go from bottom to top and top to bottom. Okay, oh, look at that, nice. Not too many, just a few, randomly. And we're also gonna take a little bit of black, and you still have a little bit of gray there. Just mix it in. Okay, just like that. because I also want to add some contrasts with the black. So you guys can add just with the tip of your brush. And you can kind of define your line where it meets. Just to get a little bit of texture there for the rock. Kind of going from top to bottom first. Make sure you guys kind of outline it a little. And as you're going with your outline, bring those lines down to create textures that are kind of coming down closer to the cliff. Nice, look at that, guys. Looking good. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side here. Just slightly, you don't need to do too many lines. All right. And just to kind of add a little bit more contrast in between, we can do kind of very, very, very fine with very tip of your brush. Just go in there and create some more cliff textures to kind of see that's like the half part. That's where the rock is cut in half. All right, there we go. Nice. Look at that, guys. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so once you guys have your rock here, it's a very nice rock formation already. We can see the dome part here. You can see that it's kind of cropped in the middle. It's shaping up half of the dome. Okay, so for our next step, we're gonna mix some brown. And for brown, we're gonna need some yellow, some red, and some blue. Now, yellow is less dominant. So we're gonna need a lot of yellow, a little bit of red, and less blue than red. Okay, so these are the three primary colors that we're gonna be using for the brown. Let's go ahead and do a mixture with those three primary colors. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a lot of yellow first. So I'm gonna scoop up maybe about 4 or 5 of these yellow little scoops with my paintbrush. That's about 4 and one more. We'll do 5. 5 little scoops of the yellow, okay? Okay, now that's a lot of yellow. If you don't have plenty, just make sure you get a little bit more, okay? We do need a lot of yellow. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush, set my yellow aside. Now I'm gonna move on to the red. So with the red, I'm going to scoop it once, one good dip, and just gonna place it next to it, okay? All right. And the blue, I'm also going to dip it in just once, just right next to it, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start mixing the yellow and the red first. Okay, so yellow and the red, make sure you guys clean your brush really good. That's gonna give me an orange color right there. It's yellow and red makes orange. Now I'm gradually gonna be adding some blue into my orange here, and it's gonna start, ooh, that's way too green. Okay, as that happens, you need more of the yellow. I'll bring in some more of the yellow and a little bit more red, okay, because the blue is very dominant. That's our darkest color that we're using here. So now it needs more of the red to make a nice brown for our trees. Okay, there we go. All right. So if it's too greenish, guys, just add a little bit more red, and that should do the trick. So instead of adding 1 scoop of red, I added 2 scoops of red and just 1 of the blue. And let's take a look here. That's pretty good. I like that brown. So now we're going to bring up some shapes for our trees, but they're not going to go all the way up. You can barely see, it's like a peak of a tree. And these trees, it's just kind of like the pine tree that's kind of peeking up on the top of the mountain. Because remember, this is like the very peak of the top where the rock is forming into that dome shape. Then the rock continues down further and making up a mountain area. Okay, so we're just gonna have, our trees are just gonna be way down here. Don't go all the way up, okay? We're not gonna cover our dome shape. And also with the very tip of your brush, you're going to kind of make some little branches coming out here and there to the sides. Just in case we can see them once we add our leaves. They won't all be visible, but some of them will still be able to show. So I'm just going to kind of bring out some of the branches for each one of the trunks that I just made for the pine trees. All right, okay. So let's clean our brush really well. And now we're gonna move on to the green. I have some green here, but if you wanna make green, we can just use yellow and blue, okay? And I do wanna make a different tone of green, just to have different tones for my tree. I wanna try out a lot of yellow. So maybe about 3 scoops of yellow, 2, 3, and then just 1 of the blue. Mix, mix, mix. And there I have a different tone of green. If I want it darker, I can add a little bit of black. Okay. Ooh, I like that. Nice olive green to work with my trees. Okay. Now, if I wanted my green lighter, like for the top of the tree, I could always make some more green or get some more from my little container there. I'm just going to mix some more, 3 of the yellow, 1 of the blue, mix, mix, mix. And for the top part of my trees, I want some light source. So I'm going to add white to make it light. All right. So now I have my light green, and my dark green. My light green will be added on top of the tree, my green towards the middle area, and the dark green towards the bottom, where there's less light hitting my tree. Okay, so let's try it out. Let's try it out with one of them. Okay, I'm going to try out this one here. So light green first towards the top, and I'm going to do kind of like a little dabbing technique and start really thin at the top. And just tap, 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 tap. With the very tip of your brush, tap it. And as you go down to the bottom, you can start introducing your next tone of green and blend it into the other one. Tap, tap, tap. Okay, a little bit more. And I'm getting thicker towards the bottom as well. And then finally, my darkest. And tap, tap, tap. Okay, there we go. And you can just kind of mix it in a little just to kind of play around with contrasts. And you can even add white by itself towards the top just to get a little more contrast towards the top area of your tree. So play around with the contrasts. See how you can get this light area towards the top, kind of like a greenish, olive greenish towards the middle, and then you have your dark green towards the bottom. Okay, and then just try to keep that triangular shape to form your tree, your pine tree. Okay, so I'm going to start again with the light towards the top, and I'm going to add a little bit of white too. White and the light green towards the top there. Then I'm going to move on to my regular green and just kind of blend it in. Tap, 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 tap. Okay. And finally, my dark green. If your dark green is not dark enough, you can always add a tiny bit of black. Just kind of tap it in there. This tiny, tiny bit. All right. That's beautiful. Look at that. Now I have two trees. So let's keep going like that. I'm going to start again with my lighter towards the top. Tap it very thin at the top. And as it goes down to the bottom, it's going to get thicker, but it's also going to change to my regular green. And then my darker green towards the bottom. Okay. Just kind of blend them in between. Tap, tap, tap. If you need more white towards the top, you can always get some more white to create more contrast. And blend those in. Try to keep the shape of a pine tree. Okay. So thin at the top and gets thicker towards the bottom here. Try to keep that same stroke up and down. Okay. Just like a little bunny jumping up and down. Okay. All right, so now we have 3 of them. Okay, we're moving along here. Again, I'm going to start with my light green towards the top. Remember to keep your brush straight up and down. Tap, tap, tap. And as you go to the middle, add some of the green. Tap, tap, tap. And once you get to the bottom part, you can add your darker green. Create nice contrast. Kind of blend them in a little bit. Not too much. Tap, tap, tap here and there. And there you go. All right, it's coming along, guys. Let's move on to the next tree. Get some of that light green towards the top with a little bit of white. Tap, tap, tap. Don't worry if a little bit of the brown mixes in. That's okay. It's green in there. And your dark green towards the bottom. If you want to create a little bit more contrast towards the bottom, you just add a tiny, tiny bit of black. Tap it on the bottom to create more contrast, like there's more of the shade towards the bottom there. Okay. And let's move along. Light towards the top. Now this one's a lot smaller here. So we have different sizes of our trees, depending on how far you went up with your trunks. But remember to try to keep it thin at the top. Thin at the top and thicker at the bottom. I want a little bit more contrast here, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit of black. Okay, or you can just mix it into the dark green and just go on from there. If you notice it's too dark, mix it into the green. That way you can soften it up. All right. And finally, my last tree right over here. So I'm just going to go in there, tap, tap, tap towards the top with my light greens. A little bit more white in there. So I go down, I'm going to add some regular green. And my darker green towards the bottom. Just tap it gently, guys. Don't need to tap your full brush on there, just the very tip. Just to create a nice little texture. All right, I'm happy with what I see now. Add little details in there we go. And might need a little more contrast with the white on the top, so I'm just gonna add just a tiny bit more white right up here. And there we go, guys. Look at that beautiful painting. We're all set with our dome picture of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And stay tuned for more fun art projects. Thank you so much, kiddos. We'll see you next time.